Hello again, dear friend. Isn't it a wonder how a little patch of earth, a gentle breeze, and a few forgotten objects can hold such magic? I'm so glad you're back, perhaps with a warm cup in hand and the soft sound of birdsong nearby. Maybe you're sitting where you love most, near your porch, your little garden nook, or even just by a sunny window. Wherever you are, I hope you feel peaceful, unhurried, and ready to dream a little more. Today, we return to the same heartwarming idea, creating beauty from what's already around you. Old gloves, worn-out dishes, a broken CD, things most people would throw away. We see them differently here. We see the stories they can still tell, the joy they can still bring. And together, we'll turn them into garden art that glows with personality, warmth, and soul. You don't need to be young or strong or wealthy to make your space more beautiful. All you need is what you already have: a pair of caring hands and the desire to create something gentle and meaningful. That's more than enough. So come along. Let's walk through 20 more small wonders, charming, thoughtful garden DIYs that cost next to nothing but bring back so much. From bottle cap mosaics to tiny fairy tales carved into old tree stumps, each idea is a quiet reminder you still have the power to make art, to spark joy, to give life to the ordinary. Welcome back to your garden of second chances. Let's begin. Do you still have an old pair of gardening gloves tucked away in a drawer? The ones with worn-out fingertips, soft from years of use. Maybe they helped plant your first daffodils or held a handful of cherry tomatoes from your little raised bed. Before you consider tossing them, here's a tender way to give them new life as a beautiful symbol of care and quiet strength. This idea is called the Helping Hands Planter. And just like the name suggests, it turns a simple pair of gloves into two cupped hands that hold something precious, a little plant, a few seeds, or even a memory. To start, find those old gloves. They don't need to match or look pretty. In fact, the more worn, the more charming the result. You'll also need a bit of plaster of Paris or cement mix, something that can be poured and will harden. Slide each glove open and gently fill it with your mix. The material will take on every crease, every curve of the glove's shape, capturing the quiet story held in your hands. Before the mix dries, completely shape the fingers if needed. You can gently bend them into an open palm as if offering or cradling. Let it dry thoroughly. Once the gloves are hard, carefully peel the fabric away. What's left behind is beautiful two strong cupped hands, forever still yet full of meaning. Now comes the soul of the project, turning these hands into planters. Using a small drill or even a spoon before the plaster hardens too much, carve out a shallow well in the center of each palm. Just enough to hold a bit of soil and a tiny succulent or a starter seedling in a cup. You can also use these to hold tea candles, seed packets, or special stones. Set them in the garden at the edge of a path, on a bench, or nestled among flowers. Let them quietly catch the light of the afternoon sun. Their presence says something more than just decoration. They remind us of labor and love, of giving and receiving, of all the things our hands have done and still can do in their own way. For added meaning, you might write something gentle on them, grow hope, or simply love. Use paint, a marker, or even just let moss settle into the cracks over time. There's something deeply moving about turning worn gloves a symbol of work and aging into open hands offering life. They become a tribute not only to your garden, but to your journey through it. Still useful, still giving, still full of quiet grace. Just like you, dear friend. Do you remember pressing leaves into mud as a child, or drawing smiley faces in the soil with a stick after a rain? There's something ancient and soothing about giving nature a face, a spirit, as if the garden itself is watching over us with quiet wisdom. In this next idea, we'll take a simple clay flower pot and bring it to life. Quite literally. Using natural elements like bark, stones, moss, and a little imagination, we'll craft a gentle, expressive face right onto the side of the pot, a guardian of the garden with kind eyes and a story to tell. Start with a medium to large terracotta or clay pot. It doesn't have to be new. In fact, the older and more weathered, the better. That patina, that faded clay surface, is like a warm canvas aged by time. Make sure it's clean and dry before you begin. Now take a walk, even just around your own yard. Collect pieces of bark, interesting twigs, small pebbles, bits of lichen, and dried flower heads. These natural bits and textures will become your palette, your way of forming eyes, a nose lips, maybe even eyebrows, or a leafy crown. Using a strong outdoor glue or a dab of silicone sealant, start placing your pieces on the front of the pot. 2 bark chips for eyelids, small stones for pupils, a curled leaf for a smiling mouth. Don't rush it, let your hands play. There's no right or wrong way to form the face, just follow the shapes and let them guide you. Sometimes a crooked twig makes the perfect nose, or a cluster of moss looks just like a wise old beard. If you'd like, add some soft paint touches, a little white to bring out the eyes, or a soft green wash to blend it into the garden. But keep it natural, humble, like something the forest itself dreamed into being. Once finished, plant something wild and expressive in the top of the pot. Trailing vines, cascading flowers, or ornamental grasses that look like hair in the breeze. Suddenly, your little sculpture becomes a character, not just a decoration, but a presence. A friend keeping watch over your growing space. Set it somewhere unexpected, peeking out from behind a bush or by the edge of a path. Somewhere it might surprise and delight someone walking by. It's especially lovely if you have grandchildren or neighbors who visit. They might whisper, "Look, it has a face," and smile. This craft is more than a planter. It's a celebration of how nature reflects us and how we reflect it. With bark for skin and moss for memory, it reminds us that aging is beautiful. Wrinkles, textures, and time only make us more rooted, more real. And just like your garden, your story continues to bloom. Have you ever sat outside at twilight just as the sky begins to dim and the first stars appear? That quiet moment when everything is hushed and silver light settles on the garden feels like an invitation to simply be. No chores, no noise, just you, the evening air, and a sky full of old wishes. That's what inspired this next project, the Stargazer Seed. It starts with an old wooden chair, the kind you might find at a yard sale, or even tucked away in your garage with a wobbly leg or worn paint. Instead of tossing it, we're going to transform it into a place of peace and wonder, a reflective mosaic chair that glimmers softly under sun and moon. First, choose a chair with character. It doesn't need to be perfect, just sturdy enough to sit or lean on. If one of the slats is cracked or missing, that's just part of the charm. You'll want to clean it gently. Maybe give it a light sanding, then paint it in a soft, garden-friendly color, sage green, lavender, warm white. Or even leave the natural wood as is. Now comes the magical part, the mosaic. Gather old CDs, broken mirrors, chipped plates, or bits of costume jewelry. You can even use old buttons or marbles. Cut the CDs into small shards. You'll notice how they shimmer in pastel rainbows when they catch the light. This is the stardust for your seat. Using tile adhesive or strong craft glue, begin placing your pieces along the seat's backrest, the arms, or even across the seat itself. Don't worry about being precise. Mosaics are all about rhythm, not perfection. The light will bounce and flicker off every angle, just like stars skipping across water. Once everything is glued and dry, grout the gaps using a pre-mixed grout, or a homemade version of baking soda and glue if you prefer something gentler. Wipe it clean and step back. You'll see a simple chair transformed, not just a place to sit, but a throne for stargazing, a seat for solitude, a spot for dreaming. Set it in a quiet corner of your garden, perhaps beneath a tree near some lavender or beside a small table. Add a soft cushion if you like. And when the night falls, bring out a little lantern or solar light. Sit, breathe, look up. This isn't just a chair. It's a reminder to pause, to watch, to listen to the garden breathe at night. It reflects the sky, but it also reflects you, your creative spirit, your love for beauty, and your gentle strength in giving new life to old things. After all, even in our golden years, we still sparkle. Do you remember how magical it felt to see fireflies dancing in the dark when you were little? That soft glow coming and going, lighting up summer evenings like tiny floating lanterns. There's a kind of peace in that memory, a hush, a warmth, a quiet sparkle that tells us the night doesn't have to be dark. This next project brings that same feeling back to your garden using simple everyday items, a tall tin can or pipe, a few old CDs, and some solar lights. It's called the Solar Light Tower, and once it's in place, it becomes a glowing garden beacon, casting dancing reflections on your paths or flower beds long after the sun goes down. Let's start with the base, a piece of PVC pipe, a long tin can, or even a reused curtain rod. You'll want it to be tall enough to rise above the blooms about waist height or a little more. If it's lightweight, fill the base with small stones or sand so it doesn't tip over. Next, gather a few old CDs. You know, the ones you haven't played in years but couldn't bring yourself to throw away. Their shiny surface will be your secret weapon, catching sunlight during the day and casting rainbow sparkles as dusk falls. Cut the CDs into small, uneven shapes, triangles, curves, slivers. This doesn't need to be exact. In fact, the irregularity is part of its charm. Using strong waterproof glue or double-sided outdoor tape, begin placing the CD pieces along the pipe, swirling upward like a spiral staircase of light. You can leave space between them for an airy look or place them closer together for a more mirrored effect. If you're feeling playful, tuck in some beads, glass pebbles, or even bits of jewelry between the CD pieces. At the very top, place a small solar garden like the kind you can find for $1 or $2 at most stores. Secure it with glue, a bracket, or simply fit it snugly into the pipe opening. Now find the perfect place for your tower. Near a path, beside your favorite chair, next to a bed of night-blooming flowers. When the sun sets, the solar light will softly glow and the CD fragments will flicker and shimmer like fireflies returning just for you. This tower is more than a light, it's a celebration. A quiet declaration that even recycled things, even aging things, can shine beautifully with just a little care. And in many ways, dear friend, so can we. Let your garden twinkle. Let your heart glow. Have you ever held an old key in your hand and wondered what it once opened? A front door now long gone, a drawer filled with letters, a box of childhood keepsakes. There's something sacred about these little objects, heavy with memory shaped by time, quietly waiting to be remembered. This next garden idea is about honoring those quiet stories. We're calling it the ancient totem, a vertical sculpture made from a weathered post or branch adorned with rusty washers, metal keys, bolts, and old hardware. It becomes a kind of storytelling tower in your garden, a pillar of memory and mystery. Start with a sturdy base, a thick branch, an old broom handle, or even a worn piece of fence post, something that already carries the marks of time. If it wobbles, place it in a heavy pot filled with sand or gravel, or stake it directly into the ground where it can stand tall among your plants. Now gather your relics. Look in your junk drawer, your garage, or that old coffee tin of spare parts. You're looking for metal bits, keys that no longer fit anything, washers, springs, curtain rings, hinges. The kind of small forgotten objects most people toss. These are your symbols, fragments of usefulness that once mattered. Begin attaching them to the post one by one. You can use screws, nails, wire, or even strong glue if the totem will be kept in a sheltered spot. Let the arrangement be loose and layered. A string of keys down one side, a spiral of washers up the back. Let some pieces hang or dangle slightly, catching the breeze and making a soft musical clink. If you like, wrap thin wire or twine around parts of the post, weaving in bits of leather, beads, or fabric. You might even carve a word into the wood, something personal like time, memory, or your family name. This isn't just art, it's a silent story. And every piece you include has its own chapter. As the metal ages, it will rust and deepen, turning a warm bronze and orange. Rain will mark the wood, sun will bleach it, and your totem will grow older alongside your garden, weathering the seasons just like we do. Place it where it can be noticed, at the entrance to your garden perhaps, or beside a path where friends walk slowly by. Let it remind you nothing is truly useless. Everything, even the discarded and the dented, can become part of something meaningful again. In a world that moves so fast, your totem stands still, strong, rooted, full of memory and grace. Just like you, dear friend. There's a special kind of stillness that lives in a garden, the kind that doesn't rush, doesn't tick. Unlike the world of appointments and alarms, your garden speaks the language of seasons of bloom and rest, of waiting and unfolding. And in that rhythm, even an old broken clock can find a new and gentle purpose. This next idea is called the clock stump. It begins with something simple, a tree stump, wide, low, sturdy, and a discarded clock face that no longer tells time. Together they become a poetic marker in your garden, not of hours, but of presence. Start by finding a stump or thick slice of wood. Maybe it's left from a tree that once shaded your home. Or perhaps it's a piece you can find at a garden center or even the roadside after storm cleanup. Give it a light sanding if it's rough, but leave its natural texture, cracks, rings, and knots as part of the beauty. Now take your old clock face. You might have one tucked away in a drawer, cracked glass batteries long gone. If not, thrift stores are full of them for just a few dollars. Remove the backing hands and gears until you're left with the flat faceplate numbers circling time frozen. Center it atop the stump and secure it with small screws, weatherproof glue, or strong nails. Some like to tilt the clock slightly off-center as if time slipped a bit, a quiet joke between you and the earth. Around the edges you can embellish. Place small pebbles like minute markers, or press wildflower seeds into the cracks, letting green sprout up over time. Add a little moss, a curled fern, or a tiny ceramic figure standing nearby, a rabbit perhaps, or a small bird. This isn't about telling time anymore. It's about marking a place, a spot to pause, reflect, and remember that life isn't measured only by minutes. In this little corner of your garden, time can stand still. Children and visitors may spot it and smile. Some may ask, does it still work? And you can answer, it works differently now. It tells garden time. Set the clock stump where it can catch a bit of shade and a little morning light somewhere quiet. A place to sit nearby with tea. A place to think. Because the older we get, the more we learn that not all moments need to be counted. Some simply need to be felt. And this project is your gentle reminder of that truth. In your garden, in your life, the most beautiful things don't hurry. They simply grow. Do you remember when you believed in unicorns? When you could spot magic in the clouds, or thought the garden gnomes might truly come alive at dusk? That wonder doesn't vanish. It just hides under grown-up tasks. But today, we'll coax it back with something delightfully unexpected, a unicorn peeking out from your garden, crafted with nothing more than a doll's head and a twisted bottle. This whimsical creation is called Unicorn Peak. It's playful, sparkly, and full of joy, a tiny surprise in your greenery that says, there's still room for magic here. Start with a discarded doll's head, the kind you might find at a thrift store, or tucked in a grandchild's toy bin waiting for a new story. Look for one with a kind expression or sculpted features. Clean it gently with soap and water, then let it dry completely. Next, find a plastic bottle, something slim and shapely like a water or shampoo bottle. Cut the bottle into a long cone shape, tapering to a point. This will be the horn, the crown of the piece. Paint it with metallic paint, silver, rose gold, or iridescent white. While the paint is still tacky, sprinkle it with a bit of glitter if you like. Let it dry until it shimmers softly in the light. Attach the horn to the center of the doll's forehead, using strong glue or a screw through the inside of the head. You can even wrap the base with ribbon twine or a ring of faux flowers to soften the transition. The result: a gentle unicorn face, eyes closed in peace, looking upward with quiet wonder. Now decide where your unicorn will peek out. You can place it on a garden stake and nestle it among tall flowers like cosmos lilies or ornamental grasses. Let it hide a little, as if it's just been spotted and might disappear if you blink. For added charm, you can paint soft blush onto the cheeks, or give the unicorn a mane made from raffia moss or trailing vines. Even a few sprigs of lavender can create a dreamy look. This sculpture may be light-hearted, but it holds something deeper, the reminder that your garden isn't just a space for plants. It's a space for you, for your humor, your hopes, your memories of believing in magic. You're never too old to play, to create something a little silly and a lot meaningful. And as you pass it day by day, it might make you smile, even if you're not quite sure why. Because in this quiet garden corner, a unicorn still lives. And that means wonder still lives in you. There's something powerful about the idea of the phoenix, the mythical bird that burns to ashes and rises again, renewed and glowing. It's a story of resilience, of starting over, of finding beauty not in perfection, but in rebirth. And just like that legendary bird, this next garden idea turns what's broken into something breathtaking. Let's create a phoenix sculpture crafted from old plastic scraps, broken items, and a bit of courage. When finished, it will stand in your garden as a fiery symbol of strength, creativity, and transformation. Begin by gathering discarded plastic bottle fragments. food containers, shattered storage bins, even colorful packaging. You're looking for pieces that can be cut into long curved shapes. Think feathers, flames, and wings. Transparent or brightly colored plastics work especially well, especially reds, oranges, golds, and clear pieces that catch the light. Cut your plastic into feather-like shapes. Long and pointed for the wings, small and scalloped for the chest and tail. If the plastic is too stiff, gently heat it with a hairdryer or in warm water to shape it safely. You don't need every piece to be perfect. In fact, the uneven wild edges will give the sculpture life. For the base, use a sturdy rod, an old broom handle, or a metal garden stake. Fix a metal or wooden plate at the top as the core of the phoenix's body. Here, you'll start attaching your feathers in layers using strong hot glue zip ties, or even small screws if working with a wood base. Start at the bottom and work your way up, overlapping like shingles on a roof. The wings can fan out behind, arched high or curled slightly in, and the tail can drape downward or curve dramatically to one side. At the very top, you might form a head from a curled plastic spoon or small piece of foam with two proud eyes made from beads or bottle caps. Let the beak curve upward as if it's crying out to the sky. Once assembled, give your phoenix a final touch. Spray with a soft coat of gold or copper paint, or leave it multicolored like dancing fire. When sunlight hits the sculpture, it will glow, casting red, amber, and orange shadows onto the garden below. Place your phoenix somewhere bold. Rising from a flower bed beside a rock wall or at the edge of a pathway, a silent sentinel full of life and light. This sculpture tells a quiet story. It says, I have been broken and I have remade myself. Just like the bird of legend, just like you. Time may weather us, life may change us, but we can still rise, still shine. Your garden is full of second chances. And so are you, dear friend. Have you ever noticed how an old tree stump feels like it's holding a secret? Like it once belonged to a forest where stories were whispered and tiny creatures gathered in the moonlight. With this next project, we'll lean into that sense of quiet enchantment, turning a simple stump into a fairy tale scene using a ceramic plate and miniature items that feel like they've wandered right out of a storybook. This whimsical idea is gentle and accessible, perfect for anyone who wants to bring a bit of storytelling into their garden. No heavy lifting, no fancy tools. Just a soft imagination and a few thrifted or handmade treasures. Begin with a stump either from a felled tree in your yard, or a wooden log slice you can buy or salvage. The wider the surface, the more space you'll have to create your scene. Make sure the top is flat and stable, and give it a quick wipe to remove dust or moss. Now choose a ceramic plate, maybe one with a soft floral pattern or a touch of gold along the rim. This plate becomes your stage. You can use glue or removable adhesive to secure it to the top of the stump, or simply nestle it into a shallow groove if your stump allows. Here's where the magic begins. Gather small items that tell a tiny tale, a miniature bench, a little animal figurine, a dollhouse-sized watering can, or even a pebble pathway made from polished stones. These can be bought cheaply or made at home. Even a twisted bit of wire can become a gate, and acorn caps make perfect fairy dishes. Arrange your items thoughtfully on the plate. Perhaps a squirrel is reading a book beneath a button tree, or a tiny fox is waiting beside a clay teacup. Add a sprinkling of moss, a few dried flowers, or even a dusting of glitter if you like. If you have a little bell or charm, hang it from a nearby twig to give the illusion of movement and sound. Set your fairy tale stump along a garden path tucked under a shrub, or near your sitting area where it can quietly invite guests to pause. Grandchildren will be drawn to it. So will birds and butterflies, and maybe even a few grown-ups who haven't let go of wonder just yet. You might change the scene with the seasons: a snow-covered tea party in winter, a pumpkin harvest in fall, or blooming fairies in spring. Each change brings a new layer of joy, like turning the page of a beloved book. Because no matter our age, we never stop needing stories, especially the quiet kind we build with our hands. And when you place that last tiny mushroom or that dainty spoon on the plate, you'll feel it. You're not just decorating. You're telling a tale only your garden could know. Some stories are written in books. Others are written in rust and metal, in sun-worn textures and quiet arrangement. This next idea is one of those stories, a vertical sculpture that rises from your garden like an old legend passed down without words. It's called the Legend Totem, and it's made entirely from the humble. The discarded bottle caps, old keys, broken bits of hardware. Forgotten things retold in beauty. Start with a wooden stake, a metal rod, or even a branch that's at least 3 or 4 feet tall, something straight, sturdy, and ready to stand watch. You'll be building upward, stacking and fastening pieces until it becomes a kind of story column, one that glints and whispers when the breeze passes. Now gather your materials. Look for old keys with character-bent bottle caps in bold colors, tiny hinges, charms, curtain rings, washers, or antique drawer handles. The more variety, the better. If some are a little rusty or dull, all the more magical, they add a sense of age and mystery. Soak them to clean if needed, but don't polish away their story. Begin from the bottom and work your way up. Drill small holes through the caps and keys if needed, or wire them together in clusters. Use nails, screws, or strong glue to secure items to your stake. You can wind soft copper wire around pieces to hold them in place, or string them like garlands that hang and chime softly in the wind. Consider arranging the items in loose patterns like symbols. 3 keys for the past, present, and future. A ring of caps to represent the sun. A broken clock gear as a symbol of time slowing down. It doesn't have to make sense to anyone but you. The beauty of this totem is in the layering. It doesn't shout. It doesn't try to be fancy. It simply stands quietly rich with textures, colors, and old meaning. Once complete, plant your totem into the earth or secure it in a pot filled with gravel. Let it stand beside a chair or at the edge of your garden path like a sentinel of memory. It might catch the eye of a neighbor. It might inspire a grandchild to ask, "What does it mean?" And maybe you'll smile and say, "It means I still have stories left to tell." This totem, built from bits and pieces, becomes a symbol of who you are, resourceful, creative, unshaken by time. It's proof that what others toss aside can still rise strong, full of soul, and beautifully strange. In your hands, the ordinary becomes legendary. And in your garden, every old key opens something new. Some mornings, the garden doesn't ask for action. It simply invites you to sit, to breathe, to feel the air settle on your shoulders like a shawl, and to remember that peace doesn't come from doing more. It comes from noticing more. That's the spirit behind our next creation, the Buddha Serenity Bowl. A small meditative piece made from a thrifted ceramic dish, a few calming elements, and a succulent nestled at its heart. You'll begin with a bowl, ceramic stoneware, or even a shallow dish from the kitchen cupboard you no longer use. Look for something simple, slightly curved, and cool to the touch. Earth tones work beautifully here, but so does soft blue or aged white. It doesn't need to match anything, it just needs to feel still. Place the bowl where it can live, on a quiet porch table, nestled in a rock bed, or on a low garden shelf near your favorite sitting spot. This little sanctuary doesn't take up much space, but it brings presence wherever it rests. Now fill the base with fine sand, craft sand, leftover play sand, or even sifted soil if that's what you have on hand. Smooth it with your palm until it's even, like a soft desert waiting for footprints. Place your succulent in the center, not in a pot, but directly in the sand. Choose something simple, a jade plant, an echeveria, or a tiny haworthia with striped leaves. These low-maintenance plants are perfect for stillness. Their quiet beauty requires little care, but offers so much calm. Now for the details around the succulent, place a few pebbles. Smooth round ones are best. Perhaps a shell or a small figurine, even a tiny Buddha if you happen to have one. Everything should feel intentional, but not crowded. Leave space for air, for breath. If you'd like, use a stick or a wooden fork to draw soft lines in the sand, a few gentle curves around the plant like waves or ripples. These marks can be smoothed and remade whenever your hands feel restless or your heart needs grounding. This bowl is not just decor, it's a practice. Each time you see it, let it remind you to pause, even for just a breath, to sit with your tea a little longer, to notice how the light shifts across the leaves, to remember that peace doesn't always come in loud transformations. Sometimes it comes in a bowl of sand and one tiny living thing. You've made so much space for others in your life. Let this little bowl be space for you, because serenity, like succulents, grows in the quiet places, and you, dear friend, are still blooming even in stillness. There are days when the world feels heavy, when even the garden, as gentle as it is, asks more than we have to give. On those days, it helps to have something small, something simple, a space that doesn't bloom or demand water but still offers grounding and peace. That's the idea behind this next creation, the Zen Tray Garden, made from a wooden dish, a few grains of sand, and a little rhythm carved by your own hands. Start with a shallow wooden tray. You might already have one sitting forgotten in a kitchen cupboard, maybe an old cheese board, a fruit tray, or a decorative dish from the thrift store. The grain of the wood brings warmth, and the smooth edges feel soft and safe. Begin by filling the tray with fine sand, white or beige craft. Sand works beautifully, but even clean beach or river sand will do. Pour slowly, letting it spread naturally. Use your hands to level the surface, smoothing it into a clean canvas of stillness. Now it's time to add a few quiet elements. Choose 2 or 3 small stones, smooth ones preferably. Let them rest in the tray like little mountain peaks. Add a tiny piece of driftwood, a marble, or a dried flower bud. You're not decorating so much as composing. Each object has space to breathe. It's not about filling the tray. It's about what you leave empty. If you want to create your own rake, simply glue a few toothpicks side by side onto a piece of wood or stiff cardboard. You can also use a fork or even the end of a chopstick. Use it to draw soft patterns in the sand, concentric circles around a stone, long, slow ripples like wind across water. The practice itself is where the meaning lives. Drawing, erasing, drawing again. You can change the lines every day or let them rest undisturbed for weeks. There's no rule. The garden doesn't judge. Set your Zen tray somewhere you pass, often a windowsill, your favorite table, or beside your bed. Somewhere it can wait patiently for your fingertips. You'll be surprised how much peace it brings. How the simple act of drawing lines in sand or moving a pebble just slightly helps settle the mind. It's a tiny ritual that reminds us clarity doesn't come from force. It comes from stillness, from softness, from grace. And like the lines in the tray, your life is allowed to shift gently again and again. This little wooden dish holds no flowers, no roots, but it holds space. And sometimes that's exactly what we need most. Do you remember the old trees that once stood proudly in your neighborhood? The ones that held swings, shaded afternoon picnics, or dropped leaves like golden confetti in the fall. When those trees fall or hollow with time, we often feel a little sadness. But just like people, trunks have more to give even in stillness. And that's where this next idea begins. Let's create a blooming trunk planter, a rustic flower-filled sculpture made from a hollowed-out log or fallen trunk brought back to life with blooms spilling over like joyful laughter. Start by finding a suitable trunk or large branch. It might already be on your property, a leftover from storm cleanup or pruning, or you might find one offered free at a roadside or garden center. Look for something with personality. Knots, cracks, and age marks are welcome. They tell its story. If the wood isn't already hollow, you can create a planting pocket by carving or chiseling out a section of the top. For safety and ease, aim for a shallow trough rather than a deep hole, just enough to hold a few handfuls of soil and allow for drainage. If the wood is very dry, soak it with a little water first to soften the task. Line the hollow with landscape fabric or coffee filters to prevent soil from escaping while allowing water to drain. Then fill it gently with potting mix, pressing softly with your hands as if tucking a child into bed. Now choose your flowers. Go bright, cheerful, and low-maintenance petunias, calabrachoa, creeping jenny, sweet alyssum, or geraniums. Choose a color scheme if you like, or let it become a spontaneous burst of whatever brings you joy. Let them spill out naturally like a bouquet growing sideways. You might tuck in some trailing vines or even small herbs if the log is near your kitchen door. And if you're feeling playful, add a few garden figurines, a snail, a ladybug, a tiny ceramic house to turn the trunk into a living fairy tale. Place your blooming log along a path at the base of a tree, or even atop a raised surface where it can shine. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to feel alive again. And that's what makes this project so touching. It's not just about flowers. It's about honoring what once was and showing that beauty doesn't have to fade when function is gone. Even an old trunk cracked and gray can be a cradle for new life. just as we in our later years can still offer color, joy, and surprise to those around us. Let your garden see it bloom. Let your heart feel it too. Because even in stillness, there is still so much life left to give. There's something timeless about roses, the way they bloom without apology, curling open slowly, tenderly, as if sharing a secret with the morning light. They've always carried meaning, love, remembrance, softness, strength. And in this next creation, we'll echo that quiet beauty with something as humble as a wire hanger and a few faux petals. This is your rose spiral, a vertical garden ornament that curls upward like a growing vine blooming with handmade roses that never fade. It's lightweight, charming, and surprisingly easy to make, even if your hands tire easily, or you prefer crafting at the table rather than in the dirt. Start with a wire hanger or any flexible garden wire you have on hand. Straighten it gently, then curl it into a loose spiral or corkscrew shape. It doesn't need to be perfect. In fact, a slightly wonky spiral adds a sense of movement and whimsy, like a vine reaching toward the sun. Once your spiral is shaped, anchor one end into a small pot filled with stones or soil, or attach it to a wooden stake if you'd like it taller in your garden bed. The wire should stand upright, curving softly like a tendril in the wind. Now gather your roses. These can be faux flowers from the dollar store, petals from a broken artificial bouquet, or even ones you craft yourself from scraps of fabric or old greeting cards. The goal is to create something that feels handmade and full of charm. Choose soft reds, pinks, or creams, or go bold with lavender or golden yellow. Whatever feels like you're kind of blooming. Using a hot glue gun or floral tape, begin attaching your roses to the spiral wire. Let them cluster near the base, and then space out as they climb upward. Some may face outward, some down, just like real roses on the vine. Tuck in a few faux leaves if you have them, or add strands of raffia or ribbon for movement. When it's finished, your spiral will look like a miniature climbing rose trellis, only instead of needing sun and water, it carries the gift of permanence. Place it where it can sway a little in the breeze on your porch, beside your mailbox, or in a flower bed where nothing seems to grow. It will catch the eye. It might even fool someone into thinking they're real until they notice the soft glint of wire, the recycled petals, and realize it's not just beautiful, it's clever, and there's joy in that. Because this project, like you says, I may be older, I may be made from scraps, but look, I still rise, I still bloom. Let the spiral remind you that growth doesn't always move straight up. Sometimes it curves, pauses, even loops back before reaching the light. But it always moves forward. There's a certain charm in sharing your garden, not just with neighbors or visiting friends, but with the quiet little creatures who call it home. The ones who dart across fences, rustle the leaves, and peek from the shadows when they think no one is looking. This next project is for them a squirrel banquet, created from a mounted bowl on a stump or post, offering up treats with warmth and whimsy. It all begins with a simple bowl. Perhaps it's chipped or mismatched, a leftover from a set you once used every morning. Or maybe it's a thrifted treasure decorated with faded flowers or gentle blue rings. The key is to choose something sturdy and shallow, easy for small animals to reach, and safe in the weather. Now find your pedestal. This could be a stump left behind from a felled tree, or a short wooden post staked firmly in the ground. Even an overturned clay pot will work. The goal is to raise the bowl just high enough so it's visible yet comfortably accessible to your furry guests. Attach the bowl to the top using waterproof adhesive, or secure it with a few small screws through the base if it's strong enough. Once mounted, give it a gentle rinse and set it under the shade of a tree beside a rock wall, or near the edge of your patio where you can peek at it from a chair. Now for the feast, fill the bowl with a few peanuts and the shell's sunflower seeds or slices of apple. You don't need much, just a handful here and there. The idea isn't to tame or trap, but to offer a gesture, an invitation, a kindness. Soon enough, the visitors will come a squirrel with twitching tail, a curious bird, or even a shy chipmunk if you're lucky. They'll nibble paws and maybe meet your gaze before darting off. And you'll smile quietly, knowing you helped make their day a little brighter. You can decorate your banquet pedestal too if you'd like. Wrap it with twine glue on a few bottle caps or seashells, or write a message in weatherproof paint, welcome or small guests only. This project isn't grand or flashy, but it brings something deeply comforting, a sense of connection, of remembering that the garden doesn't belong just to us. It's part of something bigger and wilder, something we're lucky to witness. And in offering this little bowl, you remind yourself there's joy in giving. Even small things, especially small things. So let your garden be a place where creatures pause, eat, and feel safe. And let yourself feel that too. Because in giving warmth, we receive it. And in feeding others, something in us is fed as well. Sometimes the most magical things in the garden aren't planted. They appear like whispers, a shape in the branches, a shadow at sunset, the suggestion of something watching gently. That's the heart of this next creation, a deer silhouette made entirely from twigs and mounted on a simple wooden stake. It's a tribute to the quiet watchers of the woods, created with care and just a hint of woodland wonder. Begin by gathering a collection of twigs. Look for different lengths and thicknesses, some straight, some with soft curves. If you have access to flexible vines or driftwood, even better. There's no need to cut anything from living trees. Windfall twigs are perfect, already shaped by the forest and softened by time. Now find a stake or board to use as your backdrop. A thin piece of old fencing, a narrow garden post, or even the side of a weathered crate will work beautifully. This is where your deer will come to life. Lay the stake flat and begin playing with your twigs like puzzle pieces. Start with the outline of a deer, the slender neck, the gentle curve of the back, the alert ears, and the proud stance. Don't worry about detail. This is a silhouette, an impression, something your eye fills in with imagination. Use stronger, thicker twigs for the legs and body, and finer ones for the antlers, which can twist and branch into beautiful natural shapes. You can use hot glue, tiny nails, or even natural twine to secure each piece to the backing. Let the structure feel airy. You're sketching with wood, not carving in stone. Once your deer form is complete, lift the stake upright. Step back. You'll see it, the gentle animal emerging from the branches. Place it in your garden where it feels like it belongs, near tall grasses beside a quiet tree, or peeking out from a flower bed like it just wandered into view. You may choose to add a few decorative touches, a cluster of dried berries around the neck, like a garland, or a strip of burlap ribbon tied softly below the antlers. But don't overdo it. The beauty of this piece is in its simplicity. Over time, the wood may weather, the twigs may gray, and that's part of its quiet charm. It's meant to age, to blend, to look like it was always there. And perhaps in a way it always was. This deer doesn't move, but it reminds us to be still, to listen, to blend with the season, to become part of the story nature is already telling. You've created more than a garden ornament, you've invited grace to take shape. There's something so comforting about winter light, the kind that glows softly through the window or twinkles gently in the corner of the room while the rest of the world grows still. It reminds us that warmth doesn't always come from heat. Sometimes it comes from softness, from glow, from memory. This next idea is a perfect way to bring that glow into your garden or porch during the colder months. It's called the winter bottle light, and it's made from a recycled clear bottle, a bit of fabric snow, and the simple magic of twinkle lights. Start with a clean, clear plastic or glass bottle. A juice bottle, soda bottle, or even an old vase will do. Look for something tall and simple with a wide enough base to stand securely on its own. If there's a label, soak it off gently. You'll want a smooth surface to catch the light. Now comes the snow. Tear or cut pieces of white fabric, maybe an old t-shirt, a worn-out pillowcase, or some lace curtain scraps. The softer and more frayed, the better. You can also add bits of cotton batting or felt. Loosely stuff these inside the bottle, letting them bunch and swirl like drifts of snow. Don't pack them too tight, leave space for the lights to breathe. Next, take a small string of battery-operated fairy lights, the kind you can find at any dollar store, and gently feed them into the bottle. Weave them through the fabric as you go, letting the light nestle in different layers. When you turn them on, the bottle will begin to glow with a frosted shimmer like snow lit by moonlight. For a cozy touch, wrap the neck of the bottle with twine or ribbon. Tie on a small charm, a jingle bell, a sprig of faux holly, or even a cinnamon stick. If you want it to live outside, seal the top with a cork or plastic cap to keep moisture out. Now choose its home. Set it on your porch rail beside a garden statue or at the base of a tree where it can twinkle against the twilight snow. It also works beautifully indoors on a windowsill mantel or tucked beside a houseplant like a hidden lantern. This little winter bottle light doesn't shout. It doesn't blaze. It simply glows, a small, gentle reminder that light always finds its way in. And in making it, you're reminded too that even in the coldest seasons of life, your hands can still create warmth, still offer beauty, still hold the light. So let your garden shine a little longer this winter, and let your spirit do the same. Because no matter how long the night, there is always something waiting to glow. Do you ever notice how autumn feels like a soft exhale? The colors deepen, the air turns crisp, and the garden once buzzing with summer begins to quiet. But before it rests, it celebrates. That's what this next project is all about. Capturing that last golden hoorah of fall with a humble, joyful sculpture made from stacked tin cans, dried leaves, and the cozy spirit of harvest. We'll call it the Autumn Tower, a vertical centerpiece that rises like a little festival column in your garden full of color, texture, and meaning. And the best part, it's made almost entirely from things you already have. Start by collecting a few empty tin cans, soup cans, coffee tins, or even tomato paste jars. You'll want 3 to 5 of varying sizes to create a tiered effect. Remove the labels, wash them thoroughly, and make sure there are no sharp edges left behind. If you'd like, you can paint them with warm tones, rustic orange mustard, yellow deep plum, or leave the metal bare for a natural weathered look. Now comes the layering. Stack the cans from largest at the bottom to smallest at the top, using strong waterproof glue or epoxy to keep them stable. If you prefer a removable setup, you can simply balance them for seasonal display, indoors or under cover. You might want to glue the whole stack to a round wooden base or small stump for extra stability. Once your tower is built, begin decorating it with the treasures of the season. Pressed or dried leaves, maple oak, or sweet gum work wonderfully. Use Mod Podge or craft glue to attach them around the cans like a swirling dance of color. Let the edges curl naturally. Add in other fall touches, a few pine cones, acorns, cinnamon sticks, or raffia bows. For extra charm, glue on miniature pumpkins, corn husks, or faux berries from a thrifted wreath. If you'd like it to glow at dusk, wrap a battery-powered light string around the tower and tuck it in between the layers. Set your autumn tower somewhere proud at the front steps to greet guests beside a garden bench or on the patio table during your morning tea. As the days grow shorter, it becomes a gentle celebration of the season's beauty, not in the blooms, but in the falling. Not in the noise, but in the quiet colors left behind. This project is more than decor. It's a reminder that even as things wind down, they can still shine. Even as the leaves fall, there is warmth. You, dear friend, carry that warmth too. And in this season of letting go, may you also find space to glow, to rest, and to gather all the beauty that's still around you. Have you ever stood still in your garden on a breezy afternoon and watched the way the leaves move, not in a rush, not in a straight line, but with a soft meandering rhythm? That's the spirit behind this next idea. It's called the Elemental Flow Sculpture, and it's made from scrap metal old forks, spoons, bits of wire shaped into an abstract form that mimics wind or water gently flowing through your space. It's simple, it's striking, and it's a wonderful way to honor the things that no longer serve their original purpose, but still have movement and beauty left in them. Start by gathering your metal pieces. Think of mismatched cutlery, coiled springs, wire hangers, broken fan blades, or rusted tools. These don't need to match. In fact, the more irregular their shapes and textures, the more visually interesting your sculpture will be. Lay out your materials and begin to audition them, holding one next to another, turning them to see which pieces curve like waves or which might mimic a breeze caught mid-air. You're not creating a recognizable shape, not a flower, not an animal, but rather an impression. Something fluid, something alive. Use a long, narrow rod or pipe as your base. This could be an old curtain rod, a metal broom handle, or even a rebar stake from the hardware store. Anchor it in a heavy planter, a bucket filled with stones, or directly into the ground using concrete if you'd like it to be permanent. Now begin attaching your pieces using wire zip ties or even welding if you're comfortable with tools. But for most of us, simple twisted wire or strong epoxy will do just fine. Let each piece fan outward in a spiral or swirl, not too tight, not too cluttered. Think of the sculpture as frozen motion. The breeze caught mid-twirl, the river paused just before the next ripple. Once everything is secured, step back and let it tell you where it wants more. Perhaps a spoon twisted at the end of a curve, or a few wires trailing like strands of grass. You can leave the metal bare, allowing it to rust and weather naturally, or add a touch of color with soft spray paint, perhaps in silvers, bronzes, or deep ocean blues. Set it in a place where the wind can touch it, near an open corner beside ornamental grasses, or tucked into a minimalist bed of pebbles and succulents. As the sun moves across the sky, you'll see shadows play on the ground, shifting and changing. As birds flit by or breezes pass, the sculpture will seem to move even when it doesn't. It's a reminder that even stillness holds movement, that even discarded things can dance again. And perhaps most beautifully, that you too, with every curve and weathered edge, are still flowing, still graceful, still part of something that moves. Let your garden breathe through this sculpture. Let it whisper back, I see you, still flowing. Sometimes the boldest beauty comes from contrast, the shimmer of light against shadow, the circle inside a square, the balance between the natural and the man-made. This final creation in our journey is a celebration of that harmony. It's called the Geometric Fusion Mosaic, and it's made from humble items, plastic bottle caps, old CDs, and the simple joy of putting pieces together. This project isn't about following strict patterns. It's about play, about letting color, shape, and light lead the way as you build a piece of art for your garden that's modern, eye-catching, and full of personal meaning. Begin by collecting your materials, colorful plastic bottle caps from water soda or milk jugs. All sizes and colors welcome. Add a handful of old CDs or DVDs, the scratched ones, the free ones from the mail, the ones you haven't played in years. These will become your shimmering tiles, reflecting sunlight like tiny mirrors in a mosaic. You'll also need a base, something flat and sturdy. A square of plywood, the back of a cabinet door, or even a stepping stone will do. If you're placing your mosaic outdoors, be sure the base is weather-resistant or sealed with outdoor paint or varnish. Cut the CDs into small geometric pieces, squares, triangles, hexagons, whatever you feel drawn to. Scissors work well, though you may want to soften the edges with sandpaper. Don't worry if the cuts aren't perfect. In mosaic art, the imperfection is what brings soul. Now begin arranging your pieces. You might start in the center with a circle of bottle caps, then radiate outward in triangles of CD shards. Or maybe you create a spiral from small caps, gradually growing in size and shimmer. You can follow a mandala-like pattern, or go completely abstract, letting the shapes fall into place like a puzzle you're inventing as you go. Use a strong craft glue or tile adhesive to affix each piece to the base. Press gently. Allow space between some of the elements so the natural surface peeks through, grounding the shine with a sense of earthiness. Once dry, you can frame your mosaic with driftwood rope or a simple border of painted trim, or leave the edges raw for a more modern sculptural look. If you'd like, seal the finished piece with a layer of outdoor-grade resin or varnish to protect the colors and reflect even more light. Place your mosaic where it can catch the sun, leaned against a tree, mounted to a fence, or resting among your flower beds like a surprise discovery. This art isn't just decoration. It's a reflection of everything you've ever saved, reused, mended, or transformed, of the way your eyes still catch color, of the way your hands still create. And perhaps most importantly, it's a mirror of how you live with care, with creativity, with grace in the small things. So let your garden shine a little brighter with this fusion of light and shape. Because the pieces don't have to match to make something beautiful. They just have to belong, just like you. And so, dear friend, here we are. 20 more gentle wonders made not from wealth, but from imagination. Not from perfection, but from love. You've taken old gloves, broken spoons, cracked bowls, fallen branches, and turned them into something glowing, joyful, alive. You've invited whimsy to sit next to wisdom. You've let forgotten things bloom again. And in doing so, you've reminded us all of a beautiful truth. It doesn't take money to make beauty. It doesn't take youth to create magic. It only takes care. Every planter, every sculpture, every twinkling bottle light is a quiet reflection of you, your patience, your kindness. your creative spirit. That still, after all these years, wants to give life to the ordinary. And isn't that what gardening really is? Not just tending to plants, but tending to hope. Not just decorating space, but making meaning within it. Not just reusing, but re-seeing. So whether your hands are strong or tired, whether your space is wide or small, know this: your hands still hold the power to make beauty. Every bottle cap you glue, every twig you tie, every pebble you place with care, it all speaks to the quiet dignity of aging with imagination. I wonder, which of these ideas brought a little light into your heart today? Was it the deer made of twigs, the blooming log that turned age into artistry, or maybe just the idea that something broken could glow again? Whichever it was, I hope you'll try one, or two, or simply sit with them like seeds in your heart waiting for the right day to grow. And if this gentle visit brought you joy, I hope you'll join us again. There are always more stories to tell, more objects to rescue, more beauty waiting to be revealed. Until next time, dear friend, may your garden stay peaceful, may your days stay creative, and may your heart stay forever curious. Happy gardening from my little corner to yours.